Magic.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Mad Magic TV. I'm Mono. That is Thallid over there. Lots going on in the world of Mad Magic TV. Our previous video was really cool. We did it on the old Vanguard cards, the original Commanders, of which I've got some right here, these big oversized cards. If you haven't seen that video, check it out. You hear Liliana always talking about the Exorcist Army. Well, for those that missed the original launch, and I'll go ahead and show you what's going on, people have accused us of trying to make card picks just to goose the price. And that's not true, except when it is. So we have specifically said, let's try to goose the price on The Exorcist. And we did so in March. And look what has happened. It was around 10, 12 bucks a card. And we got that thing clipping all the way up into the 40s. And now they're trying to say, coming over here, you know what, back down to 14, but it's more like 25. Good luck trying to find a near mint Exorcist right now for under $25. And so let's keep that party going. Please be part of the hashtag Exorcist Army to get as many of these Exorcist cards as you can in this extraordinarily illiquid market.
Exorcist Army, you lovely
What else we have going on? We have Modern Horizons Tray.
The power creep is absolutely disgusting. And the incentive for the power creep and these subsequent Modern Horizons sets is merely to force players to buy the packs to be competitive, and it gives Hasbro license to essentially print money, and in order to be competitive you have to buy the new product.
$400 a box. Are you serious?
How do all of us game piecers like the idea of reprints now if they're actually $400 a box? But let's get into this. Let's take a look at some of these cards from the spoiler set. Look, I know that you all have seen some of these by now. We want to talk about a couple of these because it's just a thing of, what? Are you serious right now? And yes, they are serious right now. So here is Scryfall, of course. Which one do you want to pick, Thallid? Dealer's choice. What do you think about this set? Give me a card, any card.
I'm not going to start out with what I believe is the most powerful card, but I'm going to start out with a card that is representative of the a lot of the thematic stuff going on in the set, a lot of throwbacks, and a lot of Eldrazi melding with the throwbacks, and that's Emrakul, the World Anew. 12 colorless mana. When you cast the spell, so it's a cast trigger, so even if it's countered, it still activates. When you cast the spell, gain control of all creatures target player controls. That's pretty good. It has flying, protection from spells, and from permanents that were cast this turn. When it leaves the battlefield, sacrifice all creatures you control. And it's a 12/12. The big thing about this card, it has an alternative casting cost, which is pay 6 colorless mana.
This power creep was creepier than Thallid watching me sleep last night. Kinda hot. But creepy.
But we see so much support for colorless genre in this set of Modern Horizons 3 that I feel like there's just such a huge push towards Eldrazi. We may be headed towards another Eldrazi summer or future Eldrazi winter, like we did a few years ago.
Look at the price here already. It's not even out yet. $78, right?
Keep in mind these are pre-sale prices, so we do expect a huge drop. The next one that I'm completely and utterly obsessed with is Null Elemental Blast.
Yeah, I got a blast for you.
It's an uncommon card. It's essentially, once again, this is almost as if it's an Eldrazi take on two cards that have been in Magic since the inception of Magic, red and blue Elemental Blast. It's a colorless, and it does essentially the same thing, except rather than targeting blue or red spells, it targets multicolored spells. For 1 mana, the versatility is there: counter target multicolored spell, or destroy target multicolored permanent.
There's lots of good cards in the set, but to me, this is the card of the set in my mind, because it is an uncommon, because it will be very attainable, and it will just be able to be used in every deck. In Commander, It just goes in. Why would you not put that in?
Multi-format all-star.
Yeah. This was like one colorless. I mean, it's going to force a lot of people to start playing. I mean, it's not going to force people to do it. People will just deal with it.
We've strayed so far from the color pie, and we've just rewarded like 5-color play, and it's so easy to play 5-color, 4-color decks without worrying about, mana fixing, that something like this might help put some of that into check a little bit.
Mono black for the win.
All right, next row. Anything you want to call out, or you want to move on?
Oh, we definitely don't want to move on. There's another cycle similar to the Evoke cycle in the prior set. And they all begin with the word flare, and this is the Flare of Denial. It's a colorless and 2 blue basic counter spell with an alternate cost of sacrificing a non-token blue creature. This isn't as powerful as a lot of people are giving it credit for. I don't care what anyone says. Don't believe this is a force of will. It's not. It does have a really good place in, I believe, probably the blue-red Delver of Secrets deck. You have access to 1 blue mana Delver of Secrets. And in a deck where you're trying to control tempo and attack, I think this has a lot of power. And at the very least, it's going to be a sideboard card in decks like that.
One of the things that I see with this card that I like is, you're right, it's not a force of will, but it is different, because what is always critical in blue is you're always trying to hold back mana so you can have your counter spell. And since we've, for more or less, gotten rid of just a true counter spell for 2 mana for many, many years now, being able to have a creature on a board to use. So to me, this isn't necessarily the early game counter. It's more of that mid game when you start getting into the thick of things. When mana's tight, you don't necessarily just have to say, well, I just can't afford to not have this counter spell if I need it, and yet you got your blue creature on the board, right? So I think that's where it opens it up, is that you don't always have to have the 2 blue mana. And it can actually start to, in head games, in the meta of all of this, you can start tapping yourself out. And if you're playing heavy blue, sit there with this smug ass look on your face, right? Daring your opponent to go ahead and try to pretend that you don't have a counter spell. Doesn't matter. I think it's gonna make a big difference. Let's move on here. Let's go to this guy. It's in the row, the Null Drifter.
Oh, it's pretty gross. It's a pretty gross card, isn't it?
Yeah.
First of all, it's a cast trigger. It's 7 colorless for a 4/4 flyer with Annihilator 1, and when you cast it, draw 2 cards. Alternate casting cost of Evoke. Obviously, if you cast it for its Evoke cost, you have to sacrifice it when it enters the battlefield. So, but keep in mind, it's a cast trigger, so it can't be countered. So the worst case scenario is for 2 colorless and 1 blue mana, you're drawing 2 cards.
And another card here. Look at this, $19. I get it that some of these prices might cool off, but that's, with the exception of the uncommon, that was about $5 to $6. Everything is showing off as being really expensive. What was the Flare? The Flare was same thing, 26.
Now for my personal favorite.
The Chthonian Nightmare. You see that the 4th card in that row? That's that same row. I believe it's a colorless and a black for an enchantment. If you read it, when it brings back what probably destroyed Standard years ago, and people were sick of the energy.
Yeah, big dick energy. Come on. I wasn't going to miss that one.
That whole mechanic just destroyed Standard. When Chthonian Nightmare enters the battlefield, you get 3 energy. Okay, that's cool. Pay X colorless and 1 energy, sack a creature, and return it to its owner's hand. Note that all of that statement occurs before the colon. Anything that occurs before the colon is part of the cost to execute the effect following the colon. That's important. Return target creature card with mana value X from your graveyard to the battlefield. Activate only as a sorcery. So what we have here is the ability to, if we could say, recur this with something like in Commander. And Commander players are the ones that are most excited about this. something like Dockside Extortionist, you can sacrifice the Dockside Extortionist, loop it. You have infinite energy. You can get infinite energy, infinite mana. So that's pretty good, right?
You want to talk about this other black card here? I know you couldn't shut up about it earlier.
Oh boy, yeah. If I could have sex with any Goyf, it would probably be Nether Goyf.
It's good too because that I'm looking at the artwork. It's very very sexy.
You two are so weird.
It's a one drop. It's power. It's basically a Tarmogoyf, except for creature types in your or card types in your graveyard. And then, oh yeah, we might as well just staple this on there. Let's throw Escape on there. So 2 and a black, and
basically $65 card already. Like that's how much everybody loves this, and it's clearly because it's 1 mana to get them out.
Winter Moon. It is a different kind of Winter Orb. It allows mono-colored or monochrome colored decks to have parity to break parity with its effect. It's a Winter Orb that you can't tap to deactivate. However, it only affects non-basic lands, and it's another card along with the Null Elemental Blast that will help put the 4 and 5 color decks into check possibly. I want to go to white of the Reliquary first. I love this card. A green and a black. I mean, look at this power creep. 2/2 Vigilance for 2 mana. Okay, not bad stats. It gets 1/1 for each creature card in your graveyard. Okay, things are looking up. Tap it, sack another creature, which, by the way, is going to be a creature in your graveyard. Search your library for a land card and put it into the battlefield tapped and shuffle. And that effect occurs at instant speed. So this is disgusting. I mean,
and again, not a legendary.
You're growing your creature. You can grow your Nether Goyf. I'm seeing some cards that have a lot of synergy. Obviously, this is a play on words from Knight of the Reliquary from back in the day. But a really cool card, man. I like this card a lot.
And $25.
This guy,
the Psychic Frog,
gets me thick in my trouser snake like you wouldn't believe. Like more than Amaroshi, for sure. Psychic Frog is a play on words from the old card Psychotog. This is a colorless and a black for 1/2 creature in a Dimir colors that typically don't have a great curve at the 2 mana drop level. When it deals combat damage to a player or planeswalker, draw a card. That's huge. I mean, just look how the power creep has grown from Ophidian to this guy. Oh yeah, it doesn't stop there. Discard a card, put a 1/1 counter on it. Exile 3 cards from your graveyard. It gets flying until end of turn, so it also has an evasive ability. This card is going to be completely insane. It's going to provide an outlet for madness because of the discard effect. It's going to get big, and it's going to get big fast.
Boy, I'm really trying here, guys.
Look at the price on this thing, $68 already. What do you think of the Labyrinth?
I think it's absolutely and utterly busted. It's another card that obviously gives support to Eldrazi. Essentially, if you do an analysis of the card, not only assuming that you are going to use the card to, if you're going to return the 7 or more casting cost card to your hand, it's essentially a colorless dark ritual provided for every color. Because if you cast this on turn 1, you still you haven't even given up the dark ritual, right? And you're getting 1 extra mana. On the next turn, you're getting another extra mana. So you've produced 2 extra mana, the equivalent to what Dark Ritual did. So every color is getting basically a colorless Dark Ritual that doesn't cost them a card to use. It just doesn't have color pips. And that makes this even more valuable for Eldrazi decks. Just the fact that, and then plus, the fact that the card is imprinted, you're protecting yourself against potential thought seize and stuff like that as well. So that's not even necessarily a downfall. Just later on in the game, when you're ready to cast that 7 mana casting cost card or more, you simply return it to your hand, and you still.
This is another example of what I was just saying, right? Where you want to put 7 casting cost cards in your hand, you got to be very careful. You know, it used to be you wanted to have maybe more than 2 or 3 max. You were really, really pushing it, right? Because they were just going to be dead cards. If you draw them early in your hand, it's like, oh. But in this particular case, now it becomes completely desirable to do something like that. And again, not legendary, right? Yikes.
Busted. Yeah, completely
Yep.
busted.
Kappa. Now, we've seen this card before.
It broke Legacy, so why don't we just throw in Modern and see what happens? Nothing bad could happen, right? I mean, dude, like the improvised cost, anytime you have this alternative casting cost in an environment where you have playable 0 casting cost mana rocks or 0 casting cost artifacts that can provide a benefit, you're turning them into like Mox Sapphires when you have a card like Kappa Cannoneer in your deck. And board 4, let's be honest, as quickly as you're casting this card, it might as well be hexproof. Whenever it or another artifact enters the battlefield under your control, put a 1/1 counter on it, and it can't be blocked this turn. It's immediately a 5/5 every turn, and it grows by 1 every turn. And you're casting this. Usually when you're casting this, you're casting it for 1 to 3 mana.
And now think about, you know, committing a crime. Outlaws of Thunder Junction of the Outlaws of Thunder Down Under, and all these abilities keep making these artifact tokens. So this is going to constantly keep going and going and going. You're going to see this guy turn into a 12/12 creature on turn 4.
Yeah,
but we've already seen all of that. That happened already, and that's why they got rid of it.
Yeah, this happened before a couple of years ago when first Modern Horizons came out. It was called Hogak, and it was banned in like 2 fucking weeks.
Oh, Kappa. So with that, let us show you the final card that I will have. As you know, we list off these cards and tell you what they do. So let's go ahead and close with our final card. And someone commented they thought Liliana was too vulgar in one of our chats. And
Oh, Rims. Job. Tap the rear guard and silence all critique of your overpriced product.
By the way, if you do find that Liliana is too vulgar, we will help you find a safe space to express yourself. Thank you.
Bye-bye, Cynthia.
Magic.